prayer. Let us all remember that we are in the most holy presence of our Lord. In the name of the Father, and Son, and the Holy Spirit, Amen. Let us all pray the Lasallian prayer. I will continue, O my God, to do all my actions for the love of you. Saint John Baptist de La Salle, pray for us. Leave Jesus in our hearts forever. In the Father, and Son, and the Holy Spirit, Amen. Okay, so our second last topic, final term, is on the digestive system. Okay, so I already opened the quiz on the system starting today then, and then you're given a week to answer. And then next week, that would be our last meeting on the executory system, and then another short quiz. And then the week after that would already be your summative examination for schedule. I think that would be for the entire university. So remember, I am always ticking the allow late now so that you are given more time and more chances to complete your assessments. So you can answer the assessments anytime. I'll be accepting them siguro a day before the deadline for the online submission of grades, no, so that you will have the chance to answer all your assessments. Okay. So the coverage of your summative exam 4 will be 3 systems. So you have the special senses, and then we have digestive, and then we have the excretory system. And that's it now for general physiology. Okay? Okay, so we go now to the digestive system. So I guess some parts are just review, no, are just a review for you because you already had your discussion last time in your general zoology. So of course, I added some aspects related to the physiology part, no, but I'll be going fast, especially for the structures lang, no. Okay, so again, so the digestive system has two main divisions. You have first the digestive tube, okay, or we call this the gastrointestinal tract, or the GIT, no, or the alimentary canal, or simply the gut, no. So the gut is a tubular passageway that houses food, no, from the time of ingestion until propulsion, until mixing, until chemical digestion, physical digestion, and until defecation. Okay, so it starts from the mouth, then going to the pharynx, then the esophagus, stomach, then you have the small intestine, okay, and then you have the large intestine. Okay, part of the large intestine, of course, you have the rectum, and then you have the anus as the exit, no, or the external opening. Okay, and based from our previous lectures, no, the gut is lined by a mucous membrane, no, and sabi natin the mucous membrane is actually part of our first line of defense. Okay, and then it says here it's about 5 to 7 meters long in an alive human because the muscles are toned, but it's quite longer, so mga 7 to 9 meters, no, in a dead person because the muscles already have lost their tone. So the muscles already collapse. So it's quite longer, no, in a carcass or in a cadaver. Okay. Now, in terms of accessory structures, so these are the structures that don't directly participate in digestion. They just assist, or they just help, or they just aid in digestion. Usually, physical and chemical digestion. No? So we have here of course, we have the teeth. No? Thus we have the tongue. And then we have the different glands. We have the salivary glands, and then we have the liver, the gallbladder, the pancreas. So these are examples of accessory structures because in the course of digestion, okay, food don't enter the liver. They don't enter the gallbladder. They don't enter the liver, no? But these structures, especially, no, the three glands that I mentioned, they produce and secrete um, juices, no? And the juices, they have usually digestive enzymes, no, that now participate in digestion. Okay. So yun, no? So that's for the divisions. Now, in terms of functions, again, just a review. You have the act of taking in a food, so that's ingestion. Of course, that's the start of the digestive process. And then secretion. So the entire gut is covered or is covered with isolated goblet cells responsible for the secretion of mucus. And then you have the secretion of the different juices. No? You have the salivary, you have the saliva, you have the bile, you have the pancreatic juice, you have the intestinal juice, you have secretions of other compounds, no? Like you have lysozymes, meron din, vitamins, meron din, and these are all very important in the overall digestive process, okay? And then this is followed by mixing and propulsion. So as food travels down the gut, okay, the smooth muscles of the wall of the gut contract, thereby mixing food and propelling them, okay, forward or downward, going to the tract until feces reaches the anus, no? And then we have, of course, digestion. No? It's the core activity of the system. So again, when we say digestion, we have the breakdown of large, complex macromolecules to become their building blocks. So if you can still recall the organic compounds, so monosaccharides, no, are the building blocks of carbohydrates, and then hydrolysis of proteins yields amino acids. Hydrolysis of fats or lipids yields fatty acids and glycerol. And hydrolysis of nucleic acids, you have your DNA and the RNA. So they now yield the nucleotides, which are further broken down into their building blocks. Okay, so digestion is very important, no, in the conversion of these large molecules to become the nutrients, no, for these nutrients to be absorbed, no, and to be transported to body cells again for actual use. And there are two types of digestion. You have the physical or mechanical digestion and the chemical digestion. Okay? So when we say chemical digestion, there is a complete change in the molecular structure of substances. Okay, and this is usually done by, of course, the action of enzymes. No, and you're familiar with enzymes. So it means that just as I have said earlier, no, after chemical digestion, carbs would become monosaccharides, proteins would become amino acids, fats would become fatty acids and glycerol, and nucleic acids would become nucleotides, which would be further broken down into the bases, the phosphates, and the sugar. Okay, so there is a complete change in the molecular structure of the food. Whereas in chemical or mechanical digestion, there's only the physical change. It could be, of course, there is a decrease in the size, there's a change in the consistency. Like for example, if you masticate food or if you chew food, so you are just going to reduce the size of compounds. But at the end of the day, at the end of physical digestion, carbs would still be carbs, proteins would still be proteins, lipids would still be lipids, and nucleic acids would still be nucleic acids. Okay? So there is no change in the molecular structure. And in our discussion, again, no, we will review if there would be physical and or chemical digestion in parts of the gut, no, as we go along the discussion. Okay? And then, of course, a very important role of the system is absorption. So after breaking down food into micronutrients, now they will now be absorbed by the body cells, going to the circulatory and going to the lymphatic system, and then to be circulated now to the body cells. Okay? And then you have, so absorption is not only true for nutrients, no, of course, it's very true for water, it's very true for the electrolytes, and it's also very true for the um, ions and vitamins. Na? And the last phase is the elimination process or excretion process. And in humans, the act of elimination is called defecation because the final product of digestion is the feces. Okay? So, yan, na? Okay, so we start off with the oral cavity or the mouth or the buccal cavity. Okay? So, again, review lang, no? So, the oral cavity or the buccal cavity or the mouth is bounded anteriorly by the lips, and then laterally by the cheeks, of course, superiorly by the palate. No? So you have the hard palate and then you have the soft palate. So the soft palate has a very important extension, that's the uvula. Okay, and this now separates breathing and swallowing. Okay, so that's why when we are breathing, when we are swallowing, we are not breathing. Okay, and again, the mouth is inferiorly bounded by the tongue. Now, the tongue is a very, very muscular organ. Okay, and then okay, so going to the tongue, so it's a very muscular organ. It's made up of skeletal muscles. That's why we can control its contraction. And the tongue and the teeth, no, they are very important in physical or mechanical digestion. Okay, so after ingestion or after taking in a food, so the tongue now manipulates food, no, by sending them to the by sending it or sending them to the teeth, and the teeth are the ones, of course, breaking them, no, mechanically breaking them. And you're familiar with the teeth. Now you have the incisors for cutting, you have the canines for tearing, you have the premolars and the molars for the grinding of food. Okay? So again, they are very important in mechanical digestion, or technically we call that mastication or chewing. Okay? Okay, what about other characteristics of the tongue? So the surface is not smooth because of the presence of different types of papillae. So if you can still recall the tongue of your cat, no, in Compa Ana, so basically we have the same structure there, no? We also have the presence of 4 types of papillae. So we have here the fungiform papillae, and then the pointy ones are the filiform papillae, and then those that are found at the sides are the foliate papillae, and then you have the circumvallate papillae. Okay, so among the four, only the filiform papillae have no taste buds. Again, no, like in the cat's tongue. And the filiform papillae are actually mga mechanoreceptors. No, they are able to sense pressure, touch, temperature, pain. No? So yeah, so whenever we ingest hot food or cold food, yeah, no, so they are the ones that are very active in sensing these stimulations. Okay, and then among the three, you have the fungiform, the foliate, and the circumvallate papillae. The circumvallate papillae have the most number of taste buds. Okay, like if you're going to get one papilla, no, one papilla, and then try to see the magnified part. So at the sides of the papilla, you have the presence of the taste buds. And the taste buds were already introduced to you in the previous topic on the special senses. No? And sabi natin, the taste buds are actually special receptors. No? They are special receptors of usually unipolar neurons. No? They are sensory neurons. And because of the presence of these taste buds, the tongue now enhances the digestive process. Because the savorier the food, no, the tastier the food, we tend to eat a lot, diba? That's why we're really getting bigger, especially this time of the pandemic, because we have a lot of good tasting food. Okay. And again, no, before the taste stunts or the chemicals in food, no, can be sensed by the receptors, so this taste stunts must be dissolved first in water. Okay? That's why if you're eating pulburon, di ba? So when is the time that you're actually tasting pulburon? Is it immediately after ingesting pulburon? No, no. It's usually at the time when the taste stunts are now digested in water, no, as a component of saliva. So that's the only time that you are tasting pulburon. So if you have a solid food and a soup, no, it's quicker uh, to taste the soup, no, compared to a solid food. Okay? So ayun, no? Another, the filiform papillae pala, no, I forgot to mention, also increases the friction of food so that the tongue can really manipulate food going to the teeth, no, for mechanical digestion. Okay? And again, we have here the relative locations of the different taste buds. So at the posterior part of the tongue, you have for bitter, and then lateral, posterior lateral, you have for sour, and then anterior lateral, you have for salty, and then you have sweet for the located at the tip of the tongue. That's why if we're eating lollipop or ice cream, we don't show them inside our oral cavity. Now we lick them so that we can really taste the sweetness of the candy or the lollipop or the ice cream. Okay? So yan. And now we can recognize a fifth taste. That's the umami or the savory taste. Okay, because previously there were only four, but now umami is recognized. And umami is perceived because of the receptors that are reacting to alpha glutamate, no? And that's the component of our monosodium glutamate. So it's really, really true that if we add vetchin or monosodium glutamate, no, the food becomes tastier because that glutamate, no, present in the food is being sensed by the umami receptors. Okay? So, ayan. Okay, so what about the gland located in the, okay, helping, no, helping in the digestion in the oral cavity. So you have the salivary glands. There are three pairs. The largest is the parotid. No? The parotid gland is located anterior and inferior to each ear. So dito. And these parotid glands are also the target areas for the mumps virus, beke or mumps. That's why if you have beke or mumps, no, the areas anterior and inferior to each ear, no, they are really swollen. No? And they say that if the viral infection is so severe, this can also cause male sterility because the testes of the male also the testis cells, no, they contain receptors for the mumps virus. Okay, so going back, so you have the parotid gland, you have here the duct, no, parotid duct, and then you have the sublingual below the tongue. Thus you have here the lesser sublingual ducts, again emptying into the mouth. And then you have the submandibular gland. Okay, again you have another duct that empties into the mouth. So the salivary glands, of course, are specialized in the production and secretion of saliva. No? And it says here that our salivary glands are capable of producing about 1 to 1.5 liters of saliva per day, of which 99.5% no, is water. And the rest are solutes. And these are the inclusions. So, of course, you have the different ions. No, they are very important. You have bicarbonates and phosphates making the pH of the saliva slightly acidic. So this is near basic. This is near neutral already. No? And this pH is very important in the function of the enzymes, no, amylase and lipase. Okay, so it's the presence of the bicarbonates and the phosphates that also protects the oral cavity from very acidic foods. Okay, of course you have their mucosa, no? So we have mucin also. That's why the mere thought of manggang hilaw and bagoong, raw mangoes, no, and bagoong makes us salivate. So it means no, the cephalic phase of the digestive process. No, in the cephalic phase, the brain is already anticipating that we are going to eat sour foods. No, if you have uh, vinegar, etc., etc., and in anticipating, no, the brain already protects the oral cavity by releasing saliva, no, for the protection of our oral cavity, again because of the presence of these bicarbonate ions and phosphate ions. Okay, so among the solutes you have the gases, of course, you have waste products. Okay, you have mucin, no, that further protects the oral cavity. You have lysozymes because again the mouth is covered with a mucous membrane, no. You have antibody A. Now, if you can still recall, they are found. It's found in the humor, in the body humor. And there is now, in terms of chemical digestion, there is partial chemical digestion of carbohydrates and fats, no, in the oral cavity. It's because of the presence of these two enzymes. You have salivary amylase, which now breaks down carbohydrates into these sugar molecules, usually mga disaccharides. And you have the lingual lipase. No? So lipase, meaning enzyme capable of acting on lipids. So which now breaks down triglycerides into fatty acids and monoglycerides. If you can still recall the composition of your lipid, di ba? Yung triglycerides, meron siyang phosphate head tapos may three lipid tails. So it's now, they are now broken down. Okay? So again, in the mouth, there is physical digestion, and that is by mastication. And there is already the partial chemical digestion of carbs and fats because of the presence of these enzymes. So in the oral cavity, protein is just mechanically digested. So proteins are not yet chemically digested, no, in the oral cavity, primarily because there are no enzymes to digest them. Okay? Okay, and then after chewing food, no, masticating food, mixing it with saliva, the food now is called bolus. And bolus is ready to be swallowed. Okay? So points to remember about the oral cavity. So there is ingestion, the first process, first digestive process, and then physical digestion is through mastication. There is already partial chemical digestion of carbs and fats because of the presence of these enzymes. And chewed food with saliva is now called bolus. Okay? Now we go to the pharynx and the esophagus. Okay. So we have here the pharynx. So commonly, the pharynx is called the throat. It's the common pathway for both food and air. So food coming from the oral cavity, going to the digestive system, and air coming from the outside, going to the nasal cavity, no, going to the larynx. Okay? So the bolus would just pass inside the pharynx. It should not stay there. No? So it's really for the passage of the bolus and air. So it has three parts. You have the nasopharynx connected to the nasal cavity, the oropharynx connected to the oral cavity, and the laryngopharynx connected to the larynx. Okay? And swallowing is technically termed deglutition. Deglutition. So when bolus now is ready to be swallowed, it now passes the pharynx. And as it does, now of course the nerves are stimulated by the passage. It now causes the uvula, okay, to extend and seal off the nasal cavity. And then the glottis, that's the opening of the larynx, now closes. And then the epiglottis now covers the glottis. So there is now separation of breathing and swallowing. Okay, and then the bolus now passes the the throat going to the next part, which is the esophagus. No? That's why it's stated that when we swallow, we don't breathe. Okay? And it's also the reason why even if we are oriented upside down, we can still swallow because of the separation of the chambers or the pathways. Okay? And why is it that in some people, no, when they eat, so some portions of the bolus can lodge in, can be forced, going to the nasal cavity. It's because when there is really a strong pressure of air coming from the lungs. So like for example, if you're eating, then suddenly you really laughed out loud, no? So the pressure of the air would force open the glottis and the epiglottis and would force some of the particles from the bolus going to the nasal cavity. So they may lodge inside the nasal cavity. Okay? So yeah, no? So this is the same thing. Now we go to the esophagus. Okay, so the esophagus is a long muscular tube. It's posterior to the trachea. Now, if you could recall the respiratory system. And it's provided with two sphincters. You have the upper esophageal sphincter and the lower esophageal sphincter or the cardiac sphincter. They are the same. No? So when the upper esophageal sphincter relaxes, so bolus now enters the esophagus. No? And when the bolus is already in the esophagus, it now stimulates the smooth muscles of the wall to contract. And this is now peristalsis. No? Peristalsis is partly responsible for the physical digestion of food. And of course, it's very important in the propulsion of food. Going to the next section, which is the stomach. Okay? So if you're going to, if you would be asked, would there be chemical digestion in the esophagus? You can answer it in two ways. So you can say yes, no? But the chemical digestion is only because of the active salivary amylase and lingual lipase. Now, that would continuously digest carbs and lipids respectively. Okay? So there will just be continuation because of the actions of those two enzymes. And you can say no, no, if you are referring to additional enzymes, okay, that would be coming from the esophagus because there are no enzymes added from the esophagus. Okay, so so the way you answer the question would really be very dependent on the context, now on your explanation. Okay, so yeah, but there is physical digestion, and that's through peristalsis. Okay, so when the cardiac sphincter relaxes, bolus now enters the stomach. Okay, and that's the next portion. So points to remember about the pharynx and the esophagus. So the pharynx is also called the throat. There is physical digestion through peristalsis. There is chemical digestion still, no, because of the continued works of the salivary amylase and lingual lipase. That's only the reason. And food is still called the bolus. Okay? So bolus now enters the next section, which is the stomach. So the stomach is said to be a J-shaped organ. No? It's a bag-like organ. And compared to the rest of the portions of the digestive tract, it's really capable of storing a lot of food. So it can serve as a temporary storage area for food. No? So food can stay here for 2 to 4 hours. Also in the large intestine, no, food can stay for 3 to 5 hours. That's why we have schedules for our major meals. We have breakfast. After 3 to 4 hours, we get hungry. Gutom na naman. No? So we'll eat lunch. And then after lunch, another 3 to 4 hours, now we are starving again. So we go for the dinner. And then, of course, we have snacks in between. No? Other people would still have midnight snacks. Okay? And you should be thankful, no, to your gut, no, for processing the food that you're eating. Okay? So for the parts, so the first part is the cardia. It's where the cardiac sphincter is located. And then we have the elevated area here. That's the fundus. So the fundus is only found in mammals, no? And the fundus is very important in temporarily storing bolus, no, without being mixed to the gastric juice. So the fundus also is very important in housing the gases that are produced during digestion. So if you're fond of eating carbonated drinks, so gases would be stored here, and then when the smooth muscles of the stomach contract, now we now belch. No, so there is belching of gas, no, belching or birthing, or technically we call that eructation. Okay, eructation. So in the digestive system, you are really going to learn a lot of technical terms now in relation to the digestive system. Okay. So going back, the fundus is very important because it temporarily stores bolus without being mixed with gastric juice. So the presence of the the fundus ensures that food can be digested slowly, no? Food can be digested slowly in the stomach, and that food can be temporarily stored in the stomach for mga 2 to 4 hours nga. Okay? So it means that not all bolus coming from the esophagus will be digested at one time, because that would also put pressure, no, to the duodenum to digest food very fast. Okay? So the presence of the fundus allows slow but slow digestion of food. Okay? Then next we have the body, the largest portion of the stomach. And then we have the end part, that's the pylorus, with the pyloric sphincter. Okay? And just the same, no, as the cat's stomach, you have the lesser curvature, you have the greater curvature. And then if you make sections of the stomach on the wall is very, very muscular. That's why it's very important in churning, no, in the squeezing, mixing action of the stomach. And the inside of the stomach is not smooth. It has so many folds. So technically, we call them the rugae, singular ruga. So the rugae increase surface area for digestion and absorption. Okay? So, okay, we go now to the chemical digestion process happening in the stomach. And of course, it's because of the work of the gastric enzymes. So if you get a portion of the stomach and then magnify the parts, you have here the lumen, here's the lumen, and then you have here the gastric glands. And the gastric glands, they empty their secretions into the gastric pits, going into the lumen, going to the big space here inside the stomach. So what are the components of the gastric glands? So there are 3 exocrine cells. Okay. So first, you have the mucous cells. So the mucous cells can be found here, mucous neck, or ito, pwede rin may surface mucous cells din dito. And of course, the mucous cells are very important in the production and secretion of mucus with mucin. Okay? So it's capable of producing mga 1 to 3 millimeters thick of mucus. And that's very important in the protection, in the protection of the lining of the gut. Later, we will explain that. Then next, we have the sheep cells here. So yan. So we have the sheep cells or the zymogenic cells. So they are the ones responsible for the secretion of enzymes for digestion. Okay. So a sheep cell can produce and release pepsinogen going into the lumen. And pepsinogen is the inactive form of pepsin. So pepsin is the one digesting proteins in the stomach. So it means that there is now partial chemical digestion of proteins in the stomach because of the presence of this enzyme. In the oral cavity, there was no chemical digestion yet, only physical digestion. Okay? So the sheep cells are also very important in the production of gastric lipase. Now, again, converting fatty acids or triglycerides rather into fatty acids and monoglycerides. Okay? And what about the parietal? The parietal or the oxyntic cells. The parietal or the oxyntic cells, they now release hydrochloric acid. Hydrochloric acid, which makes the pH of gastric juice about 2. Okay, very, very acidic. And sabi natin that very acidic nature protects us from organisms because pathogenic organisms can be digested. And more importantly, that pH is a requirement for pepsinogen to become activated or to become converted to pepsin. Okay, again, pepsin is the active enzyme capable of digesting protein. So you might wonder, if there is an enzyme that is capable of digesting proteins in the stomach, how come that the stomach is not digested by its own enzymes? Because the stomach lining is also made up of fats and proteins. So one answer is here. So first answer, pepsinogen is released in its inactive form. open. Sorry for that. No? So again, the first reason is pepsinogen is released in its inactive form. Okay? So while it is being released, okay, from the gastric gland going to the gastric pit, it still is inactive. So it means it cannot digest proteins here. And it only becomes activated in the lumen, no, because of the presence of hydrochloric acid. And in the lumen, you can see there, you can already see there the proteins that are to be digested, no, by this pepsin. Another is that, no, sabi natin, the surface, no, the surface of the stomach is protected by 1 to 3 millimeter thick mucus. Okay, so those are the two very important reasons now why the stomach is not digested by its own enzyme. But what happens if you are fond of drinking a lot of carbonated drinks, drinking a lot of alcohol, or taking some drugs, no, on an empty stomach, especially those drugs that should not be taken in an empty stomach? So they now further increase acidity, no, and the acidic environment converts pepsinogen to become pepsin. But if there's no food inside the stomach, so those enzymes can now act on our stomach, and that can cause ulceration. So ulceration can be caused by viral, by bacterial, and also by very increased pH. Okay, so yeah, so you should really be very careful of your diet. Okay, now it says here that gastric juice is produced, no, 2 to 3 liters per day. So that's also how very active our gastric glands are. Now, apart from the exocrine glands, we have here an enteroendocrine cell, and this is the G cell. No? The G cell is very important in the production of gastrin. And later we would explain, no? We would explain the action of gastrin. Okay? What about mechanical digestion? So it says here, no? Okay, foods may remain in the fundus for about 1 hour without becoming mixed with gastric juice. So that's the purpose of the fundus again. No? Okay, so again, no, mechanical digestion is because of the churning action of the stomach. Okay, so there is churning or the vigorous mixing of food. Okay, and that's because of the very, very strong contractions of the muscles of the wall of the stomach. Okay, and so the stomach mixes bolus, no, with gastric juice, turning it into a slurry, milky-like substance now called chyme, chyme. No, and when the pyloric sphincter relaxes, the stomach now is capable of sending chyme bit by bit to the small intestine. So, unti-unti, no? It sends chyme bit by bit to the small intestines. Okay? Okay, what about absorption? So, absorption in the stomach is very limited. No? It's limited only to water. It's limited to alcohols, to certain drugs. Of course, you have ions and other compounds. Okay? That's why they say you should not drink so much in an empty stomach because it would make you drunk really faster than usual. Okay? And drugs are absorbed here, especially aspirin. And it's because, again, also the absorption is again because of an increase in the surface area because of the presence of the rugae. Okay? And it's also the reason why certain medicines, no, should be taken in an empty stomach, okay, to hasten the absorption. But some medicines, no, especially that would increase the acidity, that would cause stomach upset, no, are taken in a full stomach. So it means you have to really listen to your doctor, no, when he or she prescribes the medicine. Okay. Okay, so points to remember about the stomach. So the physical digestion is brought about by churning. Chemical digestion is because of enzymes, pepsin, and gastric lipase. So take note, the salivary amylase and the lingual lipase, they are now deactivated by the acidic pH. So they don't work anymore, no? because it's the time for pepsin and gastric lipase to work because they are active in an acidic environment. Okay? So there is limited absorption and food, no, churn bolus mixed with gastric juice is already called chyme. Okay? So next we have the small intestine and the accessory glands associated to the small intestine. Okay, so ito yon, no? So from the pyloric region of the stomach, you already have the duodenum. Okay, that's the shortest part of the stomach, but I guess that's the stoutest part of the stomach. Sorry, the intestine. And then you have the middle part, you have the jejunum. So the parts are like that of the cat's intestine. And then the terminal part is the ileum. So take note of the spelling. That's I-L-E-U-M, not double L, no? I-L-E-U-M. So take note of the spelling as against ilium of the hip bone. That's spelled I-L-I-U-M. So I-L-I-U-M, hip bone, and then I-L-E-U-M. So that's part of the small intestine. Okay? So it says here it's about 6 meters long, okay, in a human. And if you're going to isolate it and spread all the folds and all the villi and the microvilli, we have a basketball court inside of us. And that area is very important, of course, in the digestion and absorption of nutrients to be supplied to the trillions of body cells. Okay? Now, first part, you have the duodenum. It stated that complete chemical digestion of foods happens in the duodenum. Okay? And that's because the duodenum receives very important digestive secretions. So it receives bile that is produced by the liver and is temporarily stored in the gallbladder to be concentrated if bile is not yet needed in the small intestine. So if bile is needed, especially if we have a lot of fats in the diet, so there is no secretion of bile from the gallbladder, from the liver, and the stored bile, the concentrated bile from the gallbladder, so it's now released into the duodenum. Okay, so like in your laboratory, pareho lang, no? May mga ducts. So you have the hepatic ducts draining bile from the lobes of the liver. So these hepatic ducts, they will now merge to form a common hepatic duct, which now merges with the cystic duct of the gallbladder, forming the common bile duct. Okay, and then it now merges with the pancreatic duct, okay, forming the hepatopancreatic ampulla or the sphincter. Okay, so yan. Okay, so let's take first, another accessory structure is of course the pancreas. No? Let's take first the liver. So the liver is the largest gland of the body, weighing about 1.4 kilograms. It's the second largest organ next to the skin. It has also the lobes, though. You have the right lobe and the left lobe. And sabi nga, the liver is very important in the production and secretion of bile. Okay? So when bile is not yet needed, okay, it's temporarily stored in the gallbladder. So the gallbladder or the apdo, we call that apdo in Filipino, the gallbladder is very important in concentrating the bile tenfold, okay, by reabsorbing water. So bile is really very concentrated in the gallbladder, no? That's why it's taken when cooking papaitan, kaya sobrang pait, no? The papaitan dish is so bitter because of the presence of the concentrated bile, okay? So again, when bile is needed, so bile is now emptied into the duodenum. Okay, why is bile very important? So it's said to be partially a digestive secretion and partially an excretory product. Okay, so being partially a digestive secretion, it contains a lot of components. You have water, you have bile acids, you have bile salts, you have ions, no, you have bilirubin, etc., etc.
But among the components, the bile salts are very important in digestion. Okay? Because the bile salts, they now function in emulsification. Okay, so emulsification is the conversion of very large fat globules to become smaller fat droplets. So it's like um, when you place a drop of dishwashing liquid on a plate of grease. Okay, and the grease or the oil would now spread or will now be dissolved. So that's the simplest way to put emulsification is what emulsification is. No? So again, it's the conversion of very large fat globules to become smaller fat droplets. And emulsification emulsification is because of the coating, no? The coating of the bile salt. So it says here that um, there could be as many as 20 to 50 bile salts, no, that can now coat a fat droplet, no, becoming these fat droplets becoming micelles. Okay, so again, coated fat droplets are called micelles. Micelles. Okay, and the emulsification process, no, is very important because it ensures that the very large fat globules are transformed to become smaller fat droplets so that smaller fat droplets can easily be digested by lipases. Okay? So that you have more surface area, no, to be exposed to lipases, no, for them to be easily digested. Oh. And another very important purpose of the coating of the bile salts is that the the fat droplets, no, they can remain suspended in water. They would not really merge with one another, no, that can block the blood vessels or that can block the lymphatic vessels. Okay, so the coating enables them to stay in suspension, no, in the lymph or in the plasma of the blood. Okay, so that's the purpose of emulsification. That's why the bile is really very important. No? Now, the bile is also partially an excretory product because remember, function of the liver is degradation of worn out red blood cells. And in the degradation process, you have a bile pigment that is produced, and that's bilirubin. So not naturally bilirubin is secreted, no, going to the forming chyme until it reaches the large intestine, where it's now converted to a yellow-brown pigment called stercobilin, which is responsible for imparting the normal yellow-brown color to the feces. Okay? So it's also very important to check the color of your poop or to check the color of your feces to say that your body is really healthy. No? Naturally, it should be yellow-brown, and it, of course, the color of the feces would change depending on your diet. So if you're eating dark foods, like if you're eating chocolate or dinuguan, uh, of course, no, that would make the feces also dark in color. So it's really uh, suspected dengue patients, no, they are prevented from eating dark foods because the color of their poop should be constantly monitored. Now, because dengue is hemorrhagic, so it means it can cause internal bleeding. And if the suspected patient is not eating dark food, but the feces is dark, so there is a possibility of internal bleeding already. Now, so it's very important to note so that the medical practitioners would know what to do. Now, if it happens. Now, so if you're eating halimbawa dragon fruit, which is yung iba red, so it can also impart color to your feces. Now, what happens if there is something wrong with the liver, no, or with the function of the large intestine? So instead of stercobilin or instead of bilirubin going to the large intestine, no, it can be deposited to the sclerae of the eyes, to the skin, to the mucous membrane, and the person appears yellow. And that condition is called jaundice. And that could indicate certain liver disease. Now, there is something wrong with the functioning of the liver. Okay, so that's a very important indication. So again, check the color of your feces. Now, before going to the pancreas, take note that the liver is a very, very important organ, not only in digestion, but also in the circulation of nutrients. Because remember, in your circulatory system, before blood carrying the nutrients can be transported to the body parts, it has to pass through the liver. So the liver balances everything in the blood. It balances the composition of carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. It's also very important in the storage of glycogen. It's also important in the production of vitamin D, now, which is very important in absorption of calcium. It's very important in detoxifying our blood. It's very important in the recycling of our red blood cells. So it has really a lot of function. So you should take care of your liver. Okay. Now, let's go now to the pancreas. So the pancreas is said to be a dual organ. Okay, being dual, it performs two roles. So it has an exocrine part, and that exocrine part is accorded by the pancreatic acinar cells. So they are responsible for the production and secretion of pancreatic juice, while containing a lot of enzymes for digestion. And the endocrine part is accorded to the islets of Langerhans, so about mga 1%. So the islets of Langerhans, as you can see in your endocrinology, is responsible for the production and secretion of glucagon and insulin. They are important in the regulation of the blood glucose level. Okay? Now, let's try to see the components of the pancreatic juice. But before that, it's secreted at a rate of 1 to 2 to 1.5 liters per day. And its pH is basic, so 7.1 to 8.2. Because of, again, the presence of bicarbonate ions. And this pH is now very important in the functions of the different enzymes. Okay, so ito. So they would only become active if the environment um, is basic. So it means that when chyme reaches the duodenum, and chyme is acidic, di ba? It has a pH of 2 because of the presence of gastric juice, no? So it means that the pH is already neutralized in the duodenum because of the secretion of the pancreatic juice. So the pH now deactivates gastric lipase and pepsin, and now activates these pancreatic enzymes to work. Okay? So again, review this for your exam. So you have pancreatic amylase. You'll have an idea what is the function of the enzyme by taking note of the name, like amylase. No, amylase digests amylose, and amylose is a starch, into disaccharides. And then you have here enzymes that would now digest proteins. Now you have trypsin, chymotrypsin, elastase, carboxypeptidase. So they would now digest proteins now to become peptides. Okay, amino acids and then peptides. And then lipase, again, fatty acids and monoglycerides. And then, of course, we have the nucleases, the ribonucleases and the deoxyribonucleases, which would now act on RNA and DNA respectively, now to yield the nucleotides. Okay? The question is, after the action of the pancreatic enzymes, can you say that the digestion is already complete? Noting the different products of digestion, you have disaccharides, peptides, amino acids and peptides, fatty acids, monoglycerides, nucleotides. So which among the four macromolecules were completely digested? It's only the lipids. Now, because you have here the building blocks already. fatty acids, and monoglycerides. But the carbs, the proteins, and the nucleic acids, they are not yet completely digested. Okay? So it means that the action of the pancreatic enzymes only results to um, again, partial digestion, partial chemical digestion of carbs, proteins, and nucleic acids. Although you have already the full chemical digestion of fats. Okay? So what now finalizes digestion in the duodenum? So meron ng bile from the liver, and from the gallbladder, we have already pancreatic juice from the stomach, but still completion is not yet that complete. So what now finalizes the digestion, the chemical digestion in the duodenum? So that's because of the actions of the intestinal enzymes, no, intestinal enzymes, which we are going to discuss in a short while. Okay. Okay, so we go now to the small intestine, to the section. Again, you have here, like the stomach, no, the inside layer of the small intestine is not smooth. It has a lot of folds. So if we're going to magnify one part, to yon, you have a lot of smaller folds known as villi. Again, if you get one villus and then magnify it, so actually the villus contains the intestinal glands. Okay? Remember in your histology, the small intestine is lined with ciliated simple columnar epithelium. You can still recall. Okay? And the mucosal lining actually forms the intestinal glands. Na? Because you have here again four cell types comprising the gland. You have here a Paneth cell responsible for the secretion of lysozyme. So it means the Paneth cell is very important. It's a very important part of the mucosa as part of our first line of defense, no, our innate defense. And then we have an enteroendocrine cell, which now produces and secretes, more importantly, secretin and cholecystokinin, which we are going to discuss a little later on. And then again, you have the goblet cell for the secretion of mucus for protection. And then you have here the absorptive cell, not only absorptive cell, okay, but more appropriately digestive and absorptive cell. Okay. So altogether, no, they now form the intestinal gland and they release the intestinal enzymes. Now, we call the intestinal enzymes as the brush border enzymes. Now, why? So, if you get one simple columnar epithelium, one ciliated simple columnar epithelium, the cilia are actually the microvilli. Okay? So, like the rugae, like the villi, no, the microvilli also increase surface area. Okay? And the microvilli, once they are um, observed under the microscope, they appear like bristles of a brush. Okay, they appear like bristles of a brush. And I said earlier that these cells are not only absorptive cells, but they are digestive cells. Now, because once the enzymes are produced, they are now transferred into these cells, and the enzymes, no, they are really active at the region of the brush border. That's why they are called brush border enzymes. Okay. So if you're going to compare digestion in the stomach, digestion mainly happens in the lumen, in the space. In the small intestines, now digestion, most of the digestion happens on the surface of the digestive and absorptive cell. Okay, because again of the presence of the different digestive enzymes. No? So ito yung mga digestive enzymes. Now, in terms of rate of secretion, our intestine is producing 1 to 2 liters of intestinal juice per day. It contains, again, mostly water, mucus ions. Of course, you have here the enzymes. And it has, again, a basic pH accorded by the bicarbonate ion. So it means that there is no chance, no, for pepsin and gastric lipase to work because the environment is already basic. And again, no, basic environment is important in the functions of the pancreatic enzymes and the brush border enzymes. Okay. Now, looking at the enzymes, try to see the names, no? Alpha dextrinase, maltase, sucrase, lactase. So these are enzymes digesting disaccharides. No? So as a result, you have glucose, okay, and then you have glucose, fructose, galactose. So these are already the monosaccharides, GGF. Now, glucose, galactose, and fructose. Okay? And then you have enterokinase, okay, to um, actually activate trypsinogen to become trypsin. And trypsin, we said, no, trypsin is the enzyme that is capable of digesting proteins into peptides. Okay? And then you have the peptidases, aminopeptidases, and dipeptidases, which would now complete digestion of proteins. And then, of course, you have nucleosidases and phosphatases that would completely digest nucleotides into their bases. Remember, ATCG. And then you have the pentoses, either the ribose or the deoxyribose, depending on the nucleic acid. And of course, you have the phosphatases. Okay? So if you would see the products of digestion, it's really very evident that it's the intestinal enzymes now that now would complete digestion in the duodenum. Okay? And these substances now are ready to be absorbed, by the body cells. So going back, we said that the cells now covering the villus, they are not only digestive cells, but they are absorptive cells. So they're also the ones absorbing the nutrients. Okay. Okay. What about mechanical digestion? Okay. So mechanical digestion is actually the work of rhythmic segmentation. So this is segmentation movement, a diagram representing segmentation. So segmentation is a localized movement in areas of the small intestine containing food. And it's because of the distension, because when chyme is transported from the stomach to the small intestines, of course, the walls, they now distend or they stretch. And this now causes the constriction, the, the contraction of the smooth muscles, constricting the segments or constricting the small intestine into segments, parang squeezing them, squeezing them. Okay? And when chyme is already inside a constriction or a segment, the middle part, their middle parts, the smooth muscles again contract, further constricting, further constricting those areas. So it's like mashing, squeezing, mashing, and the squeezing action of the small intestines. Okay, um, um, dividing, dividing the small intestines into segments, and in doing that, it increases the digestion. It also increases the absorption. Okay, because the segmentation movement increases the chances that chyme now would come in contact with the absorptive wall of the small intestine. Okay? And the frequency of contraction varies depending on the location. So it says here segmentation happens most rapidly in the duodenum. So there would be 12 contractions per minute, 12 squeezing actions per minute. And then it now decreases going to the jejunum and then going to the ileum. So in the ileum, contraction is about 8 times per minute. But in the jejunum, baka it's 10 times. So 12 times duodenum, 10 times per minute yan, in the jejunum, and then 8 times in the ileum. So it means, and remember, food can stay in the small intestines for 3 to 5 hours. 3 to 5 hours, and there would be 8 to 12 contractions per minute. So you can imagine the number of contractions that are happening, during segmentation. So it means segmentation is really very important in increasing the digestion process, and also increasing the absorption of nutrients. Okay? And sabi, there is no net movement of chyme from the small intestine going to the large intestine during segmentation. Walang pumupuntang chyme. So, ang chyme nasa small intestines lang for 3 to 5 hours. Okay? So, it means that there is now an increase in the efficiency of the intestinal cells to really digest food and absorb the nutrients. Okay. Then after that, after 3 to 5 hours of segmentation movement, no, it means that almost all nutrients can now be absorbed by the absorptive cells, and chyme can be propelled now going to the large intestine. Okay, and propulsion is also signaled when, again, no, when bolus enters the stomach or when chyme leaves the stomach going to the small intestine. Okay, so it's followed by, so propulsion is actually brought about by the propulsive peristalsis, or we call that the migrating motility complexes, or MMCs. So the migrating motility complex actually starts with the contraction of the muscles from the base of the stomach, and then that wave now will pass the entirety of the small intestine. Okay, pushing the chyme from the small intestine going to the large intestine. So there's already net movement of chyme. Okay, and it says here that MMC reaches the ileum in 90 to 120 minutes. So from 1.5 to 2 hours. And then after that, that MMC, another wave will happen. Okay, until you have the transportation of chyme from the small intestine to the large intestine. Okay, so again, because of the segmentation and the MMC, so again, chyme can stay within the small intestines for 3 to 5 hours. Okay, and for us to be able to appreciate that more, let's try to see a YouTube video.
The duodenum contains most of the contents of the stomach. Distension of stretch receptors in the small intestine activates a reflex, stimulating a mixing movement called segmentation. During segmentation, sections of the intestine are constricted. Segmentation is a movement that increases digestion and absorption in the small intestine. However, there is no net movement of chyme. Peristaltic movements, known as migrating motility complexes, are stimulated due to a decrease in distension when most of the nutrients have been absorbed in the small intestine. Migrating motility complexes are responsible for propelling the undigested and liquefied chyme toward the ileocecal valve. Normally, the ileocecal valve is closed, so chyme cannot enter the large intestine. However, when food enters and distends the stomach, stretch receptors trigger the gastroileal reflex. The gastroileal reflex intensifies migrating motility complexes. These muscular movements force chyme through the ileocecal valve into the cecum of the large intestine.
Ayun, no? So for you to be more clarified with okay, do I have audio again? Yes? Somebody please answer.
Yes po.
Okay. Sige. Okay. What about absorption of nutrients now? So we said that absorption is really increased in the small intestine because of a very, very large surface area. Remember the area of the basketball court that we talked about earlier, no? So again, if you get the small intestine, 6 meters, and then cut it and then expand it, including all the villi and the microvilli. So that would really represent a big surface area for absorption, not only digestion, but more importantly, the absorption of nutrients. No? So how are nutrients absorbed?
So again, you have absorption of nutrients, now the electrolytes, the ions. Okay, you have fat-soluble vitamins, and then you have water. Okay? So it says here, no, you have here already the products of digestion. You have the monosaccharides, and then you have the amino acids, even some of the dipeptides and the tripeptides, and small short chain fatty acids. So when you say small short chain fatty acids, so these fatty acids contain only about mga 10 to 12 carbons in their backbone. Okay? So glucose can be glucose and galactose. No, they are now undergo facilitated diffusion. If you can still recall your passive processes, amino acids, they can undergo diffusion, simple diffusion. Again, for the short chain fatty acids, they undergo simple diffusion. So these nutrients are now absorbed by the blood capillaries. No? So if you can still recall, you have here the representation of the blood capillary in the small intestines. Ba? So after absorption of the carbs, the amino acids, and the carbs, proteins, and some fats, okay, so they now are absorbed by the capillary, by the blood capillary. Diba? Tapos from the blood capillary, you have the different blood vessels, no, depende, may intestinal, may pancreatico-duodenal, and so on and so forth, diba? And then, blood would now, again, pass the hepatic portal vein. So we said the hepatic portal vein now carries blood towards the liver, where blood is now cleansed, it's now modified, the composition of the blood is balanced, etc., etc. Okay, before it now leaves the liver, it goes to the hepatic veins, going to the inferior vena cava, and then going back to the heart. Ibig sabihin, ito ay inferior vena cava, ha? Hindi sa superior vena cava. Okay? So it means that, again, before nutrients can be transported, so they are really balanced by the liver. Okay? Pag may toxins dyan, tinatanggal din, because the liver is responsible for detoxification. Okay? What about the large chain? The large short chain fatty acids and the long chain fatty acids. So they are the ones containing mga more than 12 carbons in their backbone. So they are now, sabi, but they are they are coated, diba, with fatty acids forming micelles. And then the micelles, remember, as part of the emulsification action of the bile salts, the micelles would ferry or would now transfer these fats by simple diffusion going to the absorptive cell. And within the absorptive cell, these fats, they are now reassembled. They are now reassembled, forming the chylomicrons. So a chylomicron is actually made up of the fats. These fats added with cholesterol coated with proteins. So the coat is made up of proteins. And just like the coating of the bile salts, the protein coatings are very important in ensuring that the chylomicrons remain suspended in lymph, and remain suspended in water, in the plasma, so that they would not again fuse with one another to form a large fat molecule. Okay? And the chylomicrons, you're familiar with this, ito yung mga good cholesterol and bad cholesterol. Pag sinabi nyong high density lipoprotein, yung HDL, pag sinabi nyo high density, it's the good cholesterol because of the presence of more proteins. Kaya nga, high density. And the density is accorded to the presence of more proteins. So, more proteins, less fat. Pag low density naman, low density lipoproteins, ito yung LDLs, they are the bad cholesterol because you have less proteins and more of the fat or more of the cholesterol. Okay? So again, no, these chylomicrons, because they are very large, they cannot really penetrate the wall of the capillary. But instead, they now are absorbed by the lacteals of the lymphatic system. So ito yung lacteals, recall in our discussion of the lymphatic system. Na? So the lacteals, since they have larger pores, they now accommodate the absorption of the chylomicrons. And then sabi natin, di ba, from the lymphatic capillary, you have lymphatic vessels, and then the lymphatic vessels, they lead to the left lymphatic duct or the thoracic duct, di ba? Which now empties into the junction between the jugular and the subclavian, and then ayun, it goes back to the heart. So that's the transport, no, of the nutrients, no, especially proteins, carbs, and fats, and also larger fat molecules. That's why, no, the lymphatic and the circulatory system are very important in the transport. Okay?
The small intestine is lined with finger-like projections called villi that maximize the absorptive surface for nutrients from digested foods. Within each villus is a capillary network surrounding a specialized lymphatic vessel called a lacteal. While most nutrients, including glucose and amino acids, diffuse into the capillaries to enter the bloodstream, lipids pass instead through the lacteal to enter the lymphatic system. Fats that have been broken down into monoglycerides and fatty acids are absorbed into the enterocytes lining the villi. Here, they are reassembled into triglycerides, mixed with cholesterol, and encapsulated in a phospholipid and apolipoprotein outer shell. This new complex, called a chylomicron, acts to solubilize hydrophobic lipids within the body's aqueous environment. After exocytosis from the enterocyte, the chylomicron is too large to diffuse directly into surrounding capillaries. Rather, it passes through junctions in the endothelial surface of the lacteal to form a milky lymphatic fluid called chyle. Smooth muscles surrounding the lacteal contract, squeezing the chylomicron-filled chyle into larger lymphatic collecting vessels, which transport the lipids through the lymphatic system to eventually enter the bloodstream.
Okay. 1 minute break. Saglit lang ha. Okay, sorry for the interruption.
Hi, do I have audio again? Yes?
Opo.
Okay. Sige, sige. Malapit na. May klase ba kayo ng 10? May klase kayo ng 10?
Wala po ata.
Sige, konti na lang to. Okay, so okay, to continue. So it says here, no, the small intestine is not only very important in digestion, but greatly, no, more importantly, in the absorption of nutrients. Kasi it's the system that feeds us. No? It's the system that feeds the body cells, no, so that we can survive, we can continue living. So it does not only absorb nutrients,
it also absorbs the very important electrolytes. No, I guess by now, no, in the discussion of the different subjects in your zoology, in your physio, you now know the importance of this electrolytes. No, that's why, di ba, when a person experiences ano ba yun? LBM or loose bowel movement, usually there is the oral rehydration salts o yung orisol to return, no, the lost electrolytes. Because the electrolytes are very important in contraction, in our impulse transmission, and so on and so forth. Okay? So you have also absorption of the fat-soluble vitamins, ADIC, and of course you have water. Very important role of our small intestine is returning, no, the water that is now that now entered into the system. So you have here the relative volumes of water contributed by the different portions of the gut and by the accessory glands. No, litro yan. So if you're going to total, no, we have a total of 9.3 liters of fluid entering the gut each day. And of that 9.3 liters, okay, 8.3 liters, no, so 90%, okay, will be reabsorbed by the small intestine. And that happens during the segmentation movement, no? And again, no, of the remaining 0.9 liter would be absorbed by the large intestine, would be reabsorbed by the large intestine. So these two are very important in maintaining the fluid balance, no, of the gastrointestinal tract. So only about 0.1 liter, no, is incorporated into the feces. That's why the feces is only moist. It's not really watery. It's not really powdery dry. It's moist, no, because of the this 0.1 liter of water. And how would you know whether you have a healthy diet? Merong sinasabing floaters or sinkers. Merong pag floaters, no, ibig sabihin the poop, no, it floats. Pag sinkers, the poop sinks, no. Pag floaters, healthier daw ang diet because it means you have more fibers in the diet. Pag sinkers naman, you have more of the proteins, you have more of the fats. Okay? Another is that you can see the end of the feces, no? If merong blunt feces, may pointy feces. So, alin ang healthy? Yung blunt o yung pointy? Yun daw pointy, yung medyo tulis ang dulo. It means that you have presence again of more fibers in the diet. Pag blunt, more on fats and also more on proteins. Okay? So, yun. Okay, so points to remember about the small intestine. So, complete chemical digestion happens in the duodenum because of the presence of three very important secretions together with their products and enzymes. So, you have the bile, the pancreatic enzymes, and the brush border enzymes. And physical digestion is through rhythmic segmentation and a bit of propulsive peristalsis. And increased absorption is because of presence of villi and the microvilli, and food is still called the chyme. Okay? And ito lang, you have a summary of the enzymes lang. No? From the salivary glands, gastric juice, pancreatic juice, and the brush border enzymes. Okay? So we go now to the last part, which is the large intestine. Okay, so what are the parts of the large intestine? So first part is the cecum, where you can see the vermiform appendix. So we said that the appendix has no known digestive function, but it has a lymphatic function. No? There is the lymphatic aggregations of tissues. And then we have here the ascending colon. Ascending, meaning going up. It's located at the right side of the body. And then transverse colon. And then descending colon, descending going down, left side of the body. And then we have the sigmoid colon, or the curved part, or the S-shaped part. And then we have here the rectum. Okay? We have here the rectum. And of course, we have the anal canal, and the opening is the anus. Okay? So that's why the large intestine is also technically known as the colon, no? Because most parts are named colon. Ascending, transverse, descending, sigmoid, colon. Okay? And okay, what about chemical digestion? Would there be chemical digestion in the large intestine? Okay, the answer is yes. No, but chemical digestion is not because of the works of the enzymes, but because of the presence of our resident bacteria. Now, usually the Escherichia coli or the E. coli. Okay, they are very important, so you take care of them also because they produce vitamin K, and vitamin K is very important as a clotting factor, diba? Remember our clotting mechanism. And it's capable of chemical digestion, okay, by fermentation. So when it ferments carbohydrates, it now produces, or they now produce the gases. Okay, you have CO2, methane, hydrogen, which now contributes to the flatus, o yung fart, o yung utot. No? So the act of farting is called flatulence. No? Flatulence. And in the diet, no, if the diet contains more proteins, okay, the bacteria now ferment these proteins to produce the more foul-smelling gases. No? You have indole, scatol, hydrogen sulfide, kaya nga parang amoy bulok na itlog, di ba? And then you have also carbon dioxide. So the indole and the scatol, they also contribute to the fecal color, okay? That's why there is a truth in the saying that if you're going to eat a lot of kamote, no, sweet potatoes, you're going to fart a lot, okay? You're going to undergo flatulence a lot, no? But in the diet, if you have more of the proteins, so if you eat mga steaks, more meat, more eggs, okay, usually you produce less of the gases, but the gases are more foul-smelling. Kaya they say the quieter, no, the quieter the fart is, the more wicked it is. Mas tahimik ang utot, mas mas matinik, mas mabaho, 'di ba? Pero what happens if you eat more carbs and also more proteins at the same time? Madami ka ng utot, mabaho pa. Ba? Maraming kabote kang kinain, maraming itlog na kinain, madami ka ng utot, mabaho pa. Okay? So anyway, that's just natural, no? So, of course, the large intestine produces the undigested particles. So we call that feces. And the feces not produces but houses, no, the feces. It contains 75% water. Of the 0.1 kanina, di ba? Of the, ano nga yun kanina? 0.9, no? Of the 0.9 liter of water, so 75% is contained in the feces. And then 25% solid matter. So it consists of course, dead bacteria, undigested plant materials, yung mga fats, because fats are nearly that completely digested. No? You have waste products such as bile pigments. Again, you have stercobilin, inorganic material, mucus, and dead cells from the intestinal lining. Okay? So, yun, no? So, points to remember about the, before that, that's chemical digestion. What about the physical digestion by the large intestine? So, one, you have hostral churning. Ang spelling ng hostrum, eto, hostrum singular, hostra plural. So, these are the pouches. Okay? So, what happens during hostral churning? So, again, sabi, no, when food enters the stomach and when the stomach is distended, it now forms the gastro-ileal reflex, opening the ileocecal sphincter or valve. And sabi, the MMCs, no, they get stronger. So, CAM is now propelled from the ileum going to the cecum. Okay? So, when the level of chyme reaches a certain level, so the smooth muscles contract, squeezing the content of the cecum to the rostrum. Okay? So just the same when a certain level is reached now, when a certain level of chyme is reached, so again, the smooth muscles contract, pushing the content to the next rostrum, then to the next, and then to the next. So this is hostral churning. Okay? And this is also important in physical digestion. What about mass peristalsis? Yun yung bulk movement of food. No? So usually, after every meal, we feel that there is an urge to poop. Okay? We feel that there is certain movement and there is an urge to poop. And but given a few minutes, no, we are not really going to poop after all. So that's just because of mass peristalsis, no? It's a mass movement of chyme starting from the transverse colon going to the rectum. Okay? So yun, no? But again, no, take note that the anal canal, no, part of the rectum and the anal canal is provided with two sets of sphincter so we can control defecation. So the internal anal sphincter is made up of smooth muscles. It's involuntary. So they are contracted, no, to maintain closure of the anus. No, so the system can control, no, can retain the fecal material inside the large intestine, and additionally we can consciously control the contraction of our anus, no, of the muscles rather of the anus, because of the external anal sphincter, which is made up of skeletal muscles. So ibig sabihin voluntary. We can really contract it, no, in order to really buy us some time, no, so that we won't be able to poop immediately. But if you have to go, you really have to go, you have to go. You have to look for a comfort room, no, to defecate. Okay? So, yun. Okay, so what else? Okay. So again, points to remember about the large intestine. So chemical digestion now is because of the actions of the E. coli. And physical digestion is through haustral churning and mass peristalsis. There is reabsorption of water, diba, 0.9 liter. Thus you have ions, you have vitamins. And of course, it's very important in defecation, the final step of the digestive process. Okay? So this is just a summary of the different accessory structures and portions of the gut and their functions. I think we have discussed them all. And lastly, you have phases of digestion. No? So the cephalic phase, the gastric phase, and the intestinal phases are the phases of digestion. So it means pag sinabi nating cephalic, no? So the brain has something to do with preparing the mouth and the stomach for digestion. Okay? So siguro mas okay to. Yan. So the cephalic phase is said to be the get started phase. Now, get started. So our brain, especially our medulla oblongata, is telling our mouth and our stomach to get ready, even in the absence of food. Okay, so ganun siya kagaling, no? The brain already anticipates that we are going to eat. So it already prepares the mouth and the stomach, even in the absence of food. Okay? So it says here, the mere taste, the initial taste, no? The mere smell, sound, no, of food preparation, even the mere thought of food, okay, makes us salivate and makes our stomach be prepared, no, for digestion in anticipation of the arrival of food. Okay? Kaya nga sabi, the mere thought of manggang hilaw and bagoong, 'di ba, makes us salivate. The mere thought of food makes our stomach growl, no? There is a way for our stomach to communicate with us that we are hungry and that we need to eat. It growls a lot. No, it sounds a lot. So growling is technically known as borborygmus. You can look it up. No, you can Google it. Borborygmus. That's the growling of the stomach. It really produces a lot of noise. Okay. So again, now going back, the sensation of food causes, of course, the travel of action potentials going to the brain, especially to the medulla oblongata. And then the medulla oblongata sends now impulses to three nerves, to three cranial nerves, to the facial and to the glossopharyngeal, to the seventh and the ninth respectively, okay, telling the salivary glands to produce and secrete saliva. So these nerves now, they cause salivation, increased salivation, again, in preparation for the arrival of the food. Okay? That's why, di ba, yung mga taong nalilipasan ng gutom, pag sobrang gutom na gutom, naglalaway, kasi masakit ang tiyan, tapos later, wala na. It's because of the cephalic phase of the digestive process. Okay? So the impulses again will travel via the 10th nerve, 10th cranial. So you have the vagus nerve, okay, telling the stomach to release gastric juice in preparation for the arrival of food. Okay? And how is it happening? So you have here already the uh, interplay of hormones. And of course, you have the interplay of the different enzymes. No? So remember gastrin, okay, that is produced by the enteroendocrine cell or by the G cell. So going back to the gastric gland, you have the enteroendocrine cell, diba, producing gastrin. And gastrin now tells the chief cells to produce more pepsinogen and tells the parietal cell to produce more hydrochloric acid so that the stomach is now ready to digest proteins. Okay? Take note at the parietal cell, it has 3 receptors for ACH, for gastrin, and for histamine. So histamine also acts as a local hormone. So these 3, they are synergistic, no? Increasing the secretion of hydrochloric acid by the parietal cell. Okay? So yon, no? And of course, that's for the hormonal. For the neuronal stimulation, aside from the work of the gastrin, because the gastrin has to travel via the blood pa, going back to the stomach, no? So may nerve stimulation pa din, directly causing the chief cell and the parietal cell to produce their secretions. Okay? Kaya sabi, it's the get started phase. No? The cephalic phase readies, no? The mouth and the stomach, even in the absence of food. Okay? What about the gastric phase? So this is the go for it phase. So ibig sabihin may pagkain na talaga, no? So gastric phase starts when bolus now enters from the esophagus going to the stomach, kaya nga gastric, no? So when food is already present in the stomach, this now causes distension or stretching, and the stretch receptors now, of course, would send impulses again to the brain, and then in the region of the medulla again, it sends impulses via the vagus nerve again, via the 10th nerve, to the stomach, okay, thereby further increasing the release of gastric juice. So the medulla oblongata would say, oh, you already have food, no? Food is already present. So it means you have to increase your secretion of gastric juice more, okay, because there is already food to be digested. So the same thing happens, no? You have the action of gastrin, and then you have the increased secretion of pepsinogen and gastric lipase, no, by the chief cells, and increased secretion of the parietal cells of hydrochloric acid so that more enzymes can be present. Okay? So it's an example of a positive feedback mechanism. Kaya nga go for it. Go for it because there's already food inside the stomach. And then the last phase is the intestinal phase. So the intestinal phase starts when chyme now is present in the duodenum. Okay? So it simply means, this phase means slow down, telling the brain telling the stomach to slow down its gastric acid secretion, and telling the duodenum to start its function already. So yon, no? So again, the presence of pH2 and lipids in the duodenum, remember, chyme, diba, from the stomach is acidic. It has a pH of 2. And fats, no, have been chemically digested in the stomach. So when these are already in the small intestine, in the duodenum, it means they've already passed the stomach. So this now triggers, it triggers now the duodenum, no, to send impulses. Yung nerves in the duodenum, di ba, yung myenteric plexus, to send impulses to the brain, and then the medulla would tell, again via the vagus nerve, no, would tell the stomach to stop secretion. It turns off the stomach and it turns on the small intestine. Okay? So the local reflexes also tell the stomach to stop secretion. And next, no, the small intestine secretes, di ba yung enteroendocrine cell? There is secretin and cholecystokinin or CCK, again, telling the stomach to stop working, to stop producing and releasing gastric juice, and telling the pancreas, the liver, and the gallbladder to release their secretions into the duodenum because chyme is already in the duodenum. Okay? So, yun, no? And to finalize, that,
phases and the hormones involved in digestion. There are three main phases of digestion. You have the cephalic phase. Cephalic is referring to your head. Just the smell, the sight, or the thought of food will already start to activate your neural centers and begin getting your mouth and your stomach ready for food that is hopefully about to enter it. So you'll find that so here on the left, we have an image of what's happening in the cephalic phase. As you think about or look at food, you have vagus nerve stimulation. The vagus nerve carries the vast majority of your parasympathetic output. That's your rest and digest branch of your autonomic nervous system. And so the vagus nerve will help to stimulate the secretions in your stomach. This middle picture is looking at the gastric phase. And this is what's happening when you actually have food in your stomach. So again, we have stimulation from the vagus nerve. Parasympathetic nervous system is very active during this phase. You are promoting secretion of gastrin, which is a hormone, and also histamine, which promotes the flow of gastric juice. And so you're continuing to secrete acid and enzymes at this point. Finally, as food begins to enter the duodenum, you have feedback heading through the vagus nerve back to your autonomic brain centers. And you have sympathetic stimulation that will begin to inhibit the stomach. You want to begin turning the stomach off and turning the small intestine on because you're about done with this kind that's in the stomach. And so you have gastrin from the intestine that will promote the stomach a little bit, but mainly you're going to get some secretin and CCK, which stands for cholecystokinin. These hormones will continue to turn the stomach off and begin to turn on the small intestine and promote juices that will help to digest the kind that has entered the small intestine.
Okay. Okay, so I guess that's the end of our discussion for today.